Hello everyone and welcome to RX2010's Week 3 webinar. This week you're covering a little bit different material than you have in the past 2 weeks. You're still going to be doing dosage calculations, but you're also covering some material in the textbook about some of the body systems, specifically the skin, the eyes, the ears, the digestive system, the musculoskeletal system, and the respiratory system. As you go through this week's material, it may seem like you've already been in those chapters, and you have. This week we're going to be focusing on a bit different part of the chapter. So let's talk also about how the test this week is going to be a little bit different. Instead of having multiple choice calculations questions on your test this week, you're going to have fill in the blank problems. Now, it's not necessary for you to show your work, but if you choose, you may. And also, the other pointer that I would make on the calculations portion is to make sure you leave yourself plenty of time for the test. Don't try to do it last minute on Sunday. And the other thing is that make sure you have your previous homework assignments in front of you. In other words, week 1, 2, and 3 homework, make sure you have those done and graded, and my notes to you, and have all of that right there in front of you when you get ready to take this week's test. That will really help you a lot. And then the rest of the test is still going to be multiple choice, but those questions are going to be over the reading assignments in the textbook. So let me just give you a few examples of what you might see in those questions and how to use your textbook to make the most of your time when you're taking the test. Here's our first example. It says, what is the mechanism of action of dextromethorphan in treating coughs? Now, I've put some page numbers on here for you, and these page numbers refer to our old textbook. So some of you might have the old version, some of you might have the new version. If you have the new version, the page that you're going to want to look at is page 520. So let me write that in there for you real quick. So page 520 is where you will find information about the mechanism of action for dextromethorphan in treating coughs. There is a table there, and it talks about the two different types of coughs, productive and non-productive. And what you're going to want to do is make sure that you're really familiar with these tables as you get ready to take the test. So for instance, dextromethorphan is found on this particular table, and then it tells you about its mechanism of action about halfway down the table. And you'll notice it says that it works on the central nervous system to suppress the cough centers in the brain, in the medulla oblongata. And so that is this first answer right here. So that's the answer you would choose for that one. So that's an example of one of the types of multiple choice questions you might see coming up this week. Here's another one. Which of the following drugs is a mast cell stabilizer? So again, we're going to the textbook, page 502 in the old book, and that's page 530 in the new book. And this is a chart. Let me finish writing here. Okay. This is a chart that gives all of the different names of the drug, both generic and trade. And it tells you the dosage form, how they're supposed to take it, all those kinds of things. And the table actually started back, there's several different ones, but there's one for the bronchodilators on the previous page. On the next page is the corticosteroids and so on. This particular group of drugs that is referred to in this table is for asthma treatment. So you're just going to want to look and see where those different tables are and be kind of familiar with them so you can flip back and forth. So on this one, we want to know which one is a mast cell stabilizer. So if you look on page, what did I say again? Oh, page 502, sorry about that. And you will see the grouping. Mast cells. Did I have the wrong page number? I may have. Yes, I did. I'm sorry. It should be page 504. There's where the mast cell stabilizers start. And you will see that cromolyn sodium is the one that you want for this one. So cromolyn sodium. So that should be page 504. So I'm sure that's going to change the page number in the new book too. So it's probably 532. So double check that. But again, you're just looking for the table, and this is table 2512. So keeping those tables handy will allow you to look this material up. Last example, which of the following drugs is used to treat psoriasis? This one is on page 407 in the older textbook, and page 426 in the new textbook. So it's actually 406 is where the table starts, but the answer is going to be found on 407, I believe. And this one wants to know which of the following drugs is used to treat psoriasis. So we're going to find that specific disease state for the skin, because this is the chapter on skin. And you will see it's at the top of page 407. And they list several different classifications of drugs and trade names for drugs. So you'll see there's penicillin, there's hydrocortisone, cyclosporin. Those are all different types of drugs that are used. And the one of these that is part of that list is the third one. Etanercept is the one, and it is the brand for Enbrel. And it is an injectable biologic response modifier. So again, you're just going to want to know how to use these tables in order to be better prepared for this week's test. So just a little helpful hint for that. Now, moving on to a little bit of review over the calculations for this week. I've got several different slides, several different examples to kind of review the material that you've had for the past 2 weeks. Just pointing out, just some things you've already seen, but just trying to make you a little more comfortable with them. So the first thing I've got is a slide about how to calculate the number of doses. So you really need to make sure that you read carefully and you don't overcomplicate the problem, because that typically is what happens. Folks read through these problems, there's so much information there, and they're just not sure how to break it down. So let's go through this first and just read the question. This question says, how many doses are provided in the prescription below? So basically what they're asking is how much medication do you have for the whole prescription, and when you break it up into the doses, how many of those are there? So for this particular prescription, the name of the drug is ibuprofen 400 milligrams. Great piece of information to know. Nothing we need to do with that. It's not going to help us determine the number of doses. However, the way the doctor prescribed the medication is important. So the doctor said to take 1 or 2 by mouth every 6 hours as needed for pain. So the dose, which is what they're asking about, is this information right here about how many you're going to take every time you take it. So they said we're going to take 1 or 2. We really want to make sure when we're calculating how long a medication should last, or anything dealing with quantity and doses, if there's more than one option, 1 or 2 like this one, you always want to use the higher dosage amount, because we want to make sure that our patients don't run out of medication. So if they choose to take 2 every time they take it, we don't want them to run out. So on this particular problem, we are dispensing 120. So that's the amount dispensed, and the amount that we're going to take in a single dose, we're going to assume on the high side, so we're going to assume 2. So we're taking the amount dispensed, 120, divided by the amount taken in a single dose, which is 2. So that means there's going to be a total of 60 doses. So they can take the medication 60 times before they run out, if they take the maximum amount every time. Okay, our next example is also dealing with the number of doses. Again, we want to read carefully. This question asks how many 1 teaspoon doses are in a 4-ounce bottle of Prozac liquid solution, 20 milligrams per 5 mils. Now, we've got a prescription here. for Prozac solution. And they're taking 2 teaspoons by mouth daily. But it's not asking us about this prescription. It's asking us about the bottle. It wants to know how many doses, and these are teaspoon doses, not 2 teaspoon doses, are in this particular bottle. Now, keep in mind that anytime we are doing calculations, we want to make sure that all of our units are matching up. So we don't want ounces and we don't want teaspoons. Those two things do not equate. We can't compare them. So the first thing that we have to do is convert our units all to the same measure. So that's what I did down here in this first box. I converted my 4 ounces to milliliters. If you're still not real comfortable, you can use the proportions to do that. But many of you by now know that 1 ounce is 30 mils, so 4 ounces is going to be 120 mils. Okay. And then we're ready to use that formula that we just used before. We took the amount dispensed, which was 120, and the amount in the dose. And again, they're asking about a 1 teaspoon dose. 1 teaspoon is 5 milliliters. So if I take 120 and divide it by 5, I'm going to get 24 doses. Again, the biggest thing on these problems is to make sure you're reading carefully. This one asked about 1 teaspoon doses, and to make sure that all of your units are the same. If you're going to have one on top and one on bottom, they must be the same if you're dividing like this. Okay, let's take a look at another one. This is one where we're calculating the quantity to dispense. This is Biaxin, 250 milligram tablets, and we want to know how many should be dispensed. The doctor wants the patient to take 2 by mouth BID. BID means twice a day, and we're doing it for 10 days. So calculating the quantity to dispense, we use the formula amount in a dose times the frequency times the number of days. Amount in the dose, the doctor said take 2 every time, so it's 2 tablets, 2 times a day for 10 days. So 2 times 2 times 10 is going to be a total of 40 tablets that we're going to be dispensing. Here's another one where we're calculating the quantity to dispense. Remember, we always want to use those common measurements. So on this one it says how much promethazine with codeine syrup should be dispensed. This is the prescription. We're going to dispense promethazine with codeine syrup, and this is the strength. 6.25 per 10 tells us how much promethazine and how much codeine is in every teaspoon of the syrup. The doctor says they're going to take 1 teaspoon by mouth 4 times a day for 4 days. Again, we want to use standard conversions. So 1 teaspoon is 5 milliliters. So each dose is 5 milliliters. QID means 4 times a day, and we're doing it for 4 days. So 5 times 4 times 4 gives me a total quantity to dispense of 80 milliliters. Okay, we will continue where we left off on the next segment.